Ever feel like there's just this massive ocean of stories out there? Like a swirling current of information constantly flowing around us. Well, that's where the All Sorts podcast comes in. We're kind of like, a submersible. We dive deep beneath the surface to bring you the extraordinary and the unexpected connections that you just wouldn't find otherwise. Today, our dive takes us to the Dominican Republic, a place full of vibrancy and life, but now, sadly, overshadowed by a terrible tragedy.
Yeah, the news coming out of Santo Domingo is just awful. Reports from ABC News and AP News are saying there was this catastrophic roof collapse at a nightclub, the Jet Set nightclub. It's claimed the lives of at least 79 people and injured so many more.
As we dig deeper into this heart-wrenching story, a familiar name emerges, one many baseball fans will recognize: Octavio Dotel. This news brings the tragedy closer to home for a lot of people in the baseball world.
Absolutely. Octavio Dotel, he was a big name in MLB for years. His passing, along with so many others, is a huge loss for the baseball community and, really, for everyone. We also found out that Tony Blanco, he played in MLB and had a great career in Japan, and Nelsie Cruz, the sister of former MLB star Nelson Cruz, they were among the victims too.
So for this deep dive, we have two goals. First, we need to understand the basic facts of what happened as they've been reported. And second, we want to take some time to remember the incredible career of Octavio Dotel, a man who had a real impact on so many MLB teams.
Okay, so let's start with the immediate aftermath of the collapse. The news is describing just chaos and grief, rescue teams working tirelessly, and just the sheer magnitude of the loss. It's truly heartbreaking for the Dominican Republic. What jumps out at you from these early reports?
The suddenness of it all, I think. One minute everyone's having a good time, and the next, boom, tragedy strikes. It really makes you realize how fragile life is. Almost immediately, the baseball world started reacting to the news. Commissioner Robert Manfred Jr., ABC News, quoted him. He issued a statement saying that MLB was deeply saddened by the deaths of Octavio Dotel, Tony Blanco, Nelsie Cruz, and all those who lost their lives. He talked about the strong and lasting connection between baseball and the Dominican Republic, and he offered his condolences, especially to Nelson Cruz and his family.
The relationship between baseball and the Dominican Republic, it goes beyond just the steady flow of amazing players. It's woven into the culture of the nation. Baseball is a source of huge national pride, a passion that brings everyone together. So when something tragic like this happens and touches those in the baseball world, the whole country feels it. The loss of someone like Octavio Dotel, who had such a long and well-known career, it feels like a loss for the entire Dominican Republic.
Yeah, it really does. And Tony Clark, he's the head of the MLB Players Association. AP News reported that he also released a statement. He talked about the players standing together with the Dominican community during this time of, and I'm quoting here, incomprehensible sadness. He specifically mentioned the grief being felt for all the victims and offered support to the families of Octavio Dotel and Tony Blanco, and to Nelson Cruz for losing his sister, Nelsie.
These responses really show you how close-knit the baseball community is. It's a community that goes way beyond teams and national borders. The Dominican Republic is a vital part of that global baseball family, and this tragedy has definitely shaken a lot of people within it. What do you think it says, the fact that the leaders of the league and the Players Union responded so quickly and personally?
I think it shows the deep respect and affection for the Dominican Republic and its players. It's acknowledging their enormous contribution to the sport, and there's this shared sense of loss.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about Octavio Dotel's career. Baseball-reference.com says his journey started when he signed with the New York Mets as an amateur free agent. This was way back in 1993. It took a while, but he finally made his MLB debut in 1999.
Right. He began his career as a starting pitcher, but he really found his groove and had more success as a relief pitcher. That's a pretty common transition for pitchers in the majors. And his career, it lasted an amazing 15 seasons. From 1999 to 2013, he pitched an incredible 758 games. What do you think? What does that kind of longevity tell us about his skill and his ability to bounce back? Oh, it speaks volumes about his stamina and effectiveness. To stay in the major leagues for that long, especially as a reliever, where you're constantly under pressure in crucial situations, it takes serious skill and mental toughness. And get this is fascinating. When he played for the Detroit Tigers in 2012, he actually set an MLB record. He played for 13 different teams. Edwin Jackson later broke that record, but it's still incredible. It just shows what an amazing journey he had through the league. Why do you think he played for so many different teams?
That's a good question. It often happens with relievers who have a special skill set, like a really powerful fastball or a talent for strikeouts. Teams looking to strengthen their bullpens see them as valuable assets, even if it's just for a short time. Dotel probably had qualities that a lot of teams wanted at different points in his career. The AP News report highlighted his most impactful years as being with the Houston Astros back in the early 2000s. He was a key setup man for their closer, Billy Wagner. Do you remember him?
Oh, of course, Billy Wagner.
During his, 4+ seasons in Houston, he pitched in over 300 games and had a really good ERA, around 3.25. What made him so effective during that period?
If I remember right, he had this really lively fastball and a super deceptive slider. He was a strikeout pitcher, and in that setup role, he could come in late in the game and just shut down hitters before Wagner came in to finish things off. And let's not forget 2003, when he was part of a historic moment with the Astros. He was one of 6 pitchers who combined to throw a no-hitter against the New York Yankees, a legendary team.
Now that's a highlight for any pitcher's career. And his journey didn't end in Houston. The AP article reminded us that he played for a bunch of other teams before ending up with the St. Louis Cardinals. They traded for him right before the deadline in 2011. And that season, well, it ended with something truly special.
Right. 2011, the Cardinals had that amazing come-from-behind run to win the World Series, beating the Texas Rangers in a nail-biting 7-game series. And Octavio Dotel was right there in the thick of it. He played in 12 postseason games, including 5 in the World Series. For a player who'd been on so many different teams, reaching the pinnacle of the sport like that must have been incredibly rewarding.
Oh, for sure. Winning a World Series is the ultimate goal for any MLB player. To be a part of a championship team, especially after such a long career, with all its ups and downs, it shows his persistence and his ability to deliver under pressure when it mattered most.
And his contributions went beyond MLB. In 2013, which ended up being his last year in the majors, he represented his country, the Dominican Republic, in the World Baseball Classic. And that team, they made history. They went undefeated 8-0 to win the whole thing. What do you think that meant to him, being a part of that winning team for his nation?
It must have been incredibly meaningful. To represent your country on such a huge stage and win in such a dominant way, that's an incredible honor. It shows how passionate he still was about the game and how much he wanted to contribute, even as his MLB career was coming to an end.
When you look at his career stats on Baseball Reference, they paint this picture of a super successful and influential relief pitcher. Over 951 innings pitched in those 758 games, he racked up an impressive 1,143 strikeouts. That's a strikeout rate of over 10 per 9 innings, which is fantastic for a reliever. He ended with a solid 59-50 record, 109 saves, and a career ERA of 3.78. Those numbers show just how effective he was and how long he thrived in such a challenging role.
You're right. Over 1,100 strikeouts as a reliever. That shows his power and his ability to consistently get hitters out when it counted. That's the mark of a really successful career.
The AP report also shared this really touching detail. The New York Mets, remember they were the team that gave him his start in professional baseball, they held a moment of silence for Octavio Dotel before their game on Tuesday against the Miami Marlins. They even displayed a Dominican flag on the video scoreboard. It's a really fitting tribute to where his journey began.
It is. It reminds us that even though a player might wear many different jerseys, their beginnings and their roots, in this case, his start with the Mets and his identity as a Dominican player, are never forgotten.
And, as we've talked about, while we focused on the baseball figures involved, it's so important to remember the other victims of this horrible tragedy, like Tony Blanco and Nelsie Cruz. This event has had such a devastating impact on so many families and the entire Dominican community.
You're absolutely right. While we've spent this deep dive looking at the connections to baseball through Octavio Dotel, Tony Blanco, and Nelsie Cruz, we can't forget that many other lives were tragically lost in this collapse. Our thoughts are with everyone affected, their families, and their loved ones.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to talk directly to you, our listeners. Think of the All Sorts podcast as this constant source of new discoveries, a place where unexpected connections are made and insightful journeys unfold. If you've enjoyed today's exploration, if you're intrigued by the stories we seek out, then we invite you to join our ongoing quest for understanding. Like, share, and subscribe to the All Sorts podcast on YouTube. Your support helps us create these deep dives and allows us to share these often surprising and enriching stories with others. And don't let your curiosity end here. Check out our archive of past deep dives. There's a whole world of knowledge waiting to be explored. And to stay connected, to keep the conversation going even after the podcast ends, follow the All Sorts podcast on X, Instagram, and Threads. That's where the dialogue continues.
This tragedy serves as a stark reminder that life is precious and often unpredictable. Octavio Dotel dedicated his life to his passion. He achieved so much, and he touched countless lives through baseball. It makes you think about the impact each of us can have and the legacies we leave behind, even when our time comes to a sudden and unexpected end.